Take our seats. Let me just give you a little bit of what's happening in the news. Anybody recognize these people? Yeah. Hey. Let me tell you some of the news. I don't usually give you any of the political news, but let me give you some of the news tonight. President Trump said on Twitter Sunday that progressive Democratic congresswomen should go back to their countries. Big hoo-blue-la-ha from it. Even though 3 of the 4 lawmakers were seemingly referring to were born in the United States and are all American citizens. His tweets drew disgust from House Democrats, who called them racist and xenophobic. So interesting to see progressive Democratic congresswomen who originally came from countries, this is his tweet, whose governments are complete and total catastrophe, the worst, most corrupt and inept anywhere in the world, if they even have a functioning government at all, now loudly and viciously telling the people of the United States, the greatest and most powerful nation on earth, how our government is to be run, he tweeted Sunday morning. Why don't they go back and help fix the totally broken and crime-infested places from which they came? Obviously, he's talking about ethnic backgrounds. Then come back and show us how, if it is done. The president wrote, these places need your help badly. You can't leave fast enough. I'm sure that Nancy Pelosi would be very happy to quickly work out free travel arrangements. Newly elected non-white Democratic congressmen who have been outspoken critics of the president and his administration, all 4 women, this is Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Rashida Tlaib, and Ayanna Pressley, and also, I think, who else was it? Thank you. Oman. All 4 women who have come to be known as the Squad broke ethnic and gender barriers when they were elected last year. Omar and Tlaib are the first 2 Muslim women to serve in Congress. Presley is the first black congresswoman to represent Massachusetts. Ocasio-Cortez, at 29, became the youngest woman ever elected to Congress. The president's tweets come amid a dispute between House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and the progressive lawmakers who have grown impatient with Democratic leadership. The back and forth has spilled out into public view over the past 2 weeks after Pelosi seemed to minimize the influence of the new members. Ocasio-Cortez then accused Pelosi of singling out a newly elected woman of color. She called her a racist, actually, if you want to know that. All 4 of the freshman congressmen fired back at the president on Twitter, and the president later fired back at them. Presley posted a screenshot of the tweets and wrote, "This is what racism looks like." Although Nancy Pelosi, of all people, said that the president, she was asked if he's a racist, she said no. She said, I think his comments were inappropriate, but I don't believe he's a racist. She actually came to his defense. Omar said the president is stoking white nationalism because you're angry that people like us are serving in Congress and fighting against your hate-filled agenda. So he gave out 2 more tweets. There they are. They are all anti-Israel, pro-Al-Qaeda, and comment on the 9/11 attacks. Some people did something. That's what they said. Radical left Democrats want open borders, which means drugs, crime, human trafficking, and much more. Then he tweeted again. By the way, this was at 5:06 p.m. This is it. I guess he was right there at the same minute. We will never be a socialist or communist country. If you are not happy here, you can leave. It is your choice and your choice alone. This is about love for America. Certain people hate our country. Let me tell you, with this Squad, that's what they're called, let me tell you what they're doing. They are actually helping President Trump be reelected. They are breaking up the Democratic Party. They are so far to the left that Nancy Pelosi is trying to do back walking to try to get them to a spot of the center, and she's never going to do that. I saw an interview where they were actually bashing Nancy Pelosi. So there's some big problems in the Democratic Party. Forget the fact that they have over 20 people running for president, but now they have a media attention on 4 young senators. By the way, young House Representatives, young House of Representatives are never talked to. They never talk to them because they're learning, and these have taken all the spotlight. So they're breaking up the Democratic Party, and I actually think it's something that's good. Because I actually think they should have, maybe they are hired by the Republican Party to do that. I don't know, but something's going on there. Let me give you another thing that's going on. UN poised to launch global ban on all criticism of Islam. Now you have to listen to this one really quick. Islamic nations long have sought a determination from the United Nations that any criticism of Islam or Muslims is Islamophobic and banned globally, noting that 57 members of the OIC represent the largest voting bloc in the UN. But each time it has come up for a vote, more realistic arguments prevailed, and the campaign never legitimized. After UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres unveiled the new UN strategy and plan of action to fight so-called hate speech at a special meeting in the Pact Economic and Social Chamber, Pakistan Ambassador Malia Lodi incited more support to silence any opposition to Islam and its adherents, including speech. What they're trying to say is they would globally want to stop free speech, especially if you talk against Islam. How many of you know that that's not done for Christianity? It's not done for anything else. So basically, the UN is really kind of showing its colors. It always has been showing them, but it's coming out even more. And this one's interesting. Backdoor Sharia Law. Lawmakers aim to define Islam as something different. Listen to this. Days after the British government rejected its preferred official definition of Islamophobia, they rejected it, the Muslim Council of Britain, the biggest Islamic organization in Britain, called for the ruling Conservative Party to be officially investigated for Islamophobia. It seems everybody's a racist now. If you disagree with somebody, you're a racist. Everybody's a racist. That's their new catchword. The dispute revolves around an effort to institutionalize the definition of Islamophobia in racial rather than religious terms. You know what they want to do? They want to make going against somebody who's Islamic a racial slur, which means it's a hate speech. So Islam is not a race. Any more than Christianity is a race. So why would they do that? Well, the reason they're doing it, if they made it a race, then they can prosecute people for hate crimes. So they're trying to make, in Britain, they're trying to make Islam a race. Can you imagine? You're white, you're black, or you're Islamic. It doesn't make any sense, but that's what they're trying to do. Here's another one that comes up. This will put chills down your spine. June session of a Maine House, the Senate was opened with Hindu mantras containing verses from the Sanskrit scriptures. Both Maine Houses of Representatives and Senate in August, both of them, House and Senate, opened their June 3rd and 4th sessions respectively with Hindu mantras containing verses from the Sanskrit scriptures. Hindu statesman Rajan Zed delivered the invocations from an ancient Sanskrit scriptures before the Senate and the House. After Sanskrit delivery, he then read the English interpretation of the prayers. Sanskrit is considered a sacred language in Hinduism. Zed, who is president of the Universal Society of Hinduism, recited from the Rig Veda. Besides lines from the Upanishads and the Bhagavad Gita, both ancient Hindu scriptures. He started and ended the prayer with Om. That's kind of like a chant they have. The mystical syllable containing the universe, which in Hinduism is used to introduce and conclude religious work. Can you imagine this? Reading from the Bhagavad Gita, he urged senators and representatives to keep the welfare of others always in mind. So what happened to the separation of church and state? Or is that only, oh, I get it. It's only for Christians. I get that. I got it. Sorry, I was missing there for a second. All right, let me give you a little bit about Israel. This is interesting. This is something you won't hear on CNN or any American liberal newspaper, news station. Authority from says secret deal with Israel rescues Palestinian Authority from economic collapse. It's small print, so let me read it. Israel has agreed to drop the taxes levied on the fuel supply to the Palestinian Authority in a deal that Debka File reports was discreetly negotiated on the sidelines of the Bahrain conference. Senior Palestinian and Israeli officials got down to the quiet to brass tacks on Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's proposal to save the PA from meltdown. Under the deal proposed now by Netanyahu, Israel would drop the taxes it levies on Palestinian fuel purchases. It would release a revenue of around $50 to $55 million per month into the PA Treasury. Abbas agreed to open negotiations after studying the Israeli Prime Minister's proposal. It found the Palestinian Authority deep in debt. The PA has been borrowing from banks to cover staff payroll. It reached its debt limit in June. Qatar also came forward with an additional $50 million a month for the PA. Following the influx of cash from Israel and Qatar, the PA was able this month to cover 60% of its payroll for staff in both the West Bank and Gaza Strip, especially members of the Palestinian Security and Intelligence Services. Its debt to the bank still stands at $1.9 billion. Washington and Jerusalem are cautiously hopeful that Netanyahu's plan and Qatar's contribution for pulling the Palestinian Authority out of deep financial hole, plus the Egyptian-Qatar effort to broker a truce with Hamas in the Gaza Strip, will combine to bring down the level of Palestinian terrorist violence, both from Judea and Samaria and against the Israeli communities living next door to Gaza. So we're watching something that is unprecedented. Do you think the Palestinians would ever rescue Israel? Never. And so that should show you right there what Israel's thinking. They are not trying to kill anybody or get them off the face of the planet, whereas unfortunately the Palestinians are. So let me give you a little bit more of what's happening in economic news. And we keep telling you about this, but I want to tell you one more time. A bank of China, Hongliang Bank, sees 64% of customers going digital in 2018, an increase of more than 25% from last year. So speaking to the media, Charles Sick, manager and director of personal financial services, said, It is those 40 and above that surprise us. They're starting to adopt digital payments a lot faster. Now, why did I tell you that? Because basically 70% of its total capital expenditure this year, 70% of its profits is going to go to develop digital efforts of enhancements, which means that this is one of the largest banks in China, which means what they're really trying to do is go totally cashless. And so we're watching it happen. We're watching it domino all over the world. And so as I keep telling you every week that cashless society is coming, it is coming faster than you could possibly imagine. Let me give you a little bit more that's going on, tell you a little bit about war and what's happening there. Iran violates nuclear deal again. Iran enriched uranium stockpile exceeds 300 kilograms. It's about 661 pounds. It's a limit set by the nuclear deal on Monday, according to the Iranian Fars news agency. This constitutes a direct violation of the 2015 Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, the nuclear pact the world superpowers reached with Iran in 2015. Iran's foreign minister Mohammad Javad Zarif confirmed that the Islamic Republic breached the nuclear deal by stockpiling over 300 kilograms of enriched uranium, according to ISNA. Under the deal, Iran was prohibited from accumulating more than 300 grams of enriched uranium to the 3.6% level and from enriching uranium beyond that level, such as to the 20% level that is done before the deal. So they are enriching their uranium, they're going beyond the limits that are set by them, they are firing up their centrifuges, so they are looking to build a bomb. Everybody's saying that, especially Israel, and their secret services are saying that within a year, if they continue on, they will build a bomb. And so basically, and it'll actually put that area in jeopardy because no one likes Iran in that area. Maybe a little bit more that's going on. I told you a little bit about this the other day, and I really wanted to research it a little more, and I did. The U.S. launches not this one's the next one. The U.S. launches Cyberattack on Iran. Let me give you that one right there. Here we go. In response to Iran's downing of an American surveillance drone, remember that in international waters? The United States launched a cyberattack on Iranian weapon systems, including their missiles and rockets. The attack had apparently been planned for weeks and was first conceived in response to the suspected Iranian attack of the 2 international oil tankers near the Strait of Hormuz. This is great news. Let me tell you why. Because we've been behind the 8 ball when it comes to cyber attacks. We've been very, very limited in what we've done. Now we're stepping it up. So they have messed up the weapon system of Iran. They have messed it up cyberly, which is really kind of good because it's something that's not a war. And you know, President Trump doesn't like war. He doesn't want to put boots on the ground. So he's the first president to do something that will actually mess up that nation through sanctions, through messing up their weapon systems. And America should be able to do that, and we just did. The cyber attack is also viewed as a response to ongoing cyber attacks on U.S. targets, including federal agencies by Iran and its proxies. Since the downing of the drone, many have worried that a hot war between U.S. and Iran could erupt at any time. And as rhetoric between American and Iranian officials continues to escalate, concerns that a real armed conflict could break out have grown. Iran has warned that if a hot war begins, it could engulf the entire Middle East. At the time of this writing, the U.S. and Russia are planning to meet in Israel right now to discuss the Iranian situation, and Russia has vowed to protect Iranian interests. While the increasing friction between U.S. and Iran and other nations of the Middle East is troublesome, it shouldn't be surprising to Bible prophecy experts, as they warn us that the end of the age approaches, tension in this region will continue to increase, and that's what's happening. The tensions will eventually lead to the emergence of what the Bible calls the King of the South. The military and political entity will attempt to unify many Islamic Arab nations and will clash with the coming King of the North. I think the King of the South here is probably Egypt. Egypt is looking to broker a lot of peace in that area. The Middle East will be the center of many world-changing events in the years to come. So that's one of the reasons why I bring you that in prophecy. Let me give you this one. $72 million worth of radioactive element used in nuclear reactors reportedly seized in Turkey. I won't read you the whole thing, but I'm going to tell you 18.1 grams of californium. Now, californium is a nuclear substance, and it was developed in Berkeley, California. And basically, it's really weird to think that they could actually have it in Turkey because it was developed in California. We're the only ones that produce it. Russia may produce some, which may be the reason why it's in Turkey. But it was found in a car. And basically, this could have blown up an entire city. And so it's kind of strange. They're still kind of investigating it. Speaking of investigating, I told you this last week, and I'm going to give you a little bit more about it this week. The mystery of the ultra-secret Russian Losherik submarine disaster. At least 14 Russian naval officers and sailors died in a fire on top of a secret Russian AS-12 deepwater submarine on Monday, July 1st. But when on Wednesday, Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov was asked for details about the disaster, he declined, saying the information about the vessel would not be released because it's classified as a state secret for protecting the country's national security. Now, they were under the Arctic Circle, under the Arctic ice cap, and there's a law that says that they can go out at least 200 miles from their shores, and they can develop anything they want out there. Now, the secret here is that not necessarily developing anything or using it to try to get any gold or any of the resources, but the secret here is they had some secret weapon that they were trying to develop under the ice. America's also up under that ice, and so there's something going on covertly up there on both sides, and this tells you a little bit about it. Neither cited, talking about United States or Russia, neither cited the vessel's name. However, DEPCA's file military and intelligence sources have learned that the AS-12's work was so secret that officials only mentioned it by its nickname, Losharik, which is a double connotation. In the 70s, Russian TV ran an animation series built around a horse made up of small balls known as Losharik. The stricken submarine was also made of interlinked titanium balls. But the most secret department of the Russian Defense Ministry, whose functions are known as very few insiders, is also referred to as Losharik. The name therefore pointed to the submarine's highly classified mission. One premise is that the vessel was engaged either in testing a new Russian secret underwater weapon or in a covert operation against the top secret American object of some kind. There's some unconfirmed reports that an American submarine was sunk, although I can't confirm that. I've heard it and I've read it. Its exact location when the fire broke out and its cause, whether an explosion or an attack, remains hidden. This information may not come to light for years to come. But just as intriguing is the fact that on Tuesday, June 2nd, when the Russian leadership met urgently in the Kremlin in connection with the submarine disaster, top officials were also called to the White House for an emergency consultation. What did Washington have to do with the Russian submarine disaster? The two powers are evidently colluding to cover up what happened. So we may never know what happened, but something's going on up underneath that Arctic Circle. Let me give you this. This will actually tie into our message tonight. 1 million new STD cases daily. 1 million. A sobering new report by the World Health Organization based on 2016 data, the most recent available, documents an increase in the spread of sexually transmitted diseases in recent years. More than 1 million people catch an STD or sexually transmitted infection every day across the globe, with chlamydia, gonorrhea, trichomoniasis, and syphilis the greatest concern. Experts blame dating apps as a major reason for the spread of these diseases, along with dangerous choices about individual behavior. Several of the most prevalent STDs, such as chlamydia and gonorrhea, can lead to sterility in both men and women if left untreated. It is not surprising that the highly contagious sexually transmitted diseases are becoming more commonplace in an age where hookups permeate the culture of the young, and promiscuous and perverted sex are condoned by society. Sadly, this modern plague is the result of rejecting or failing to follow the Ten Commandments and other biblical guidelines regarding sexual relations. By limiting sexual relations to a marriage between a husband and a wife, avoiding homosexuality, avoiding fornication, these STDs could be totally wiped out and prevented and even eliminated within a generation. So it's kind of interesting. Your sins will come back on you. Let me give you this one that's coming in religion. This is about Muslims and Catholics. We believe in the same God. By the way, they do not. But in the summer of 2018, the Catholic camp Rancho Framesa opened its cabins and mess hall to Muslim campers for a week. It was a gesture of hospitality that emerged from the camp's Catholic identity and faith. Jordan Denari Duffner is the author of Finding Jesus Among Muslims: How Loving Islam Makes Me a Better Catholic. That is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. I should be real honest with you. Basically, they do not follow the same God. Il-Aliyah is a moon god. He's one of 200 false gods that was elevated by Muhammad. He is not God the Father, and even if he was God the Father, which he's not, you can't get to God the Father without Jesus Christ. No man comes to the Father except by me. So in the Dome of the Rock, in Sanskrit, it's written in Arabic, it's written across, God has no son. It's a blasphemy. It's written on the top of the inside of the Dome of the Rock in Jerusalem. So basically, Jesus is believed by Islam. You've heard me do the teaching. He's called Isa. He's believed to come back at the last great war, the Battle of Armageddon. They actually believe in it. And he's going to bow down to the hidden imam. Let me tell you something. Jesus isn't bowing down to anybody. You just got to know that right off the bat. But Catholics in this area don't believe it. Though previous church councils, and actually they're talking about the Second Vatican Council, when the Catholic Church, among other things, sought to forge a new positive relationship with people of other faiths around the world. That's wonderful. You can have a positive relationship, but you cannot say that you worship the same God. So if you're Catholic out there, and there's a lot of Catholics that are listening to me, you are not worshiping the same God as Islam. Don't buy it for a single second. It's an aberration. So basically we need to know that. Speaking of Catholics, let me tell you this one, last one. Pope has appointed many pro-LGBT cardinals and bishops. I never thought I'd read something like this to you. Growing up Catholic, I never thought I would read this to you. So listen to what it says. In advance of one of the world's largest homosexual pride parades, Father James Martin, S.J., celebrated a pre-parade mass during which he told LGBT Catholics, that actually may be a little bit of an oxymoron, to be hopeful because Pope Francis has LGBT friends and has appointed many LGBT supportive cardinals, archbishops, and bishops. Like they don't have enough problems with their sexual problems. Come on. Father Martin is a consultant to the Vatican Communications Office who campaigns for greater acceptance of homosexuality within the Catholic Church. The Jesuit offered the pre-Pride Mass at St. Francis of Assisi Parish in New York City, known for its LGBT ministry, that flouts church teaching on sexuality on the evening of June 29th. One of the leaders of this ministry has fundraised for Planned Parenthood. Martin said that LGBT Catholics should be tough in response to criticism about LGBT ideology. Offering a gloss on the words of Jesus from the Gospel of St. Luke, Martin sought to expand the definition of Christian discipleship, calling on homosexual and transgender identifying Catholics to be tough. He said, recent years have seen many positive steps for LGBT Catholics. Speaking of two big trends, Martin said one can be summarized by two words: Pope Francis. His 5 most famous words are still, "Who am I to judge?" Well, you're nobody to judge, but God is everybody to judge. So, which was the first response to a question of a gay priest, and then expanded to LGBT people. Martin said that the current pope is the first to use the word gay, adding he has LGBT friends. He's appointed many LGBT supportive cardinals, archbishops, and bishops. What you are seeing, that's my last in the news, what you are seeing is you are seeing the world come together as one. You're watching it economically, you're watching it politically, you're watching it spiritually. And so we're going to watch this thing continue to happen as we get closer and closer to the last days, closer and closer to the Lord returning. You are seeing the setup for an Antichrist system. A one world, religious, political, and economic. One currency, one faith, one universal rule. And we are getting very, very close. 2 of those are right now on the foot all over America. One world faith and a one world economy. So as we give you in the news, listen, how many of you know when the Bible says when you see these things, look up for your redemption draws nigh. So I believe Christ can come back at any time. Somebody say amen. All right, I'm going to ask the ushers if they come forward.